All right, so good afternoon again. My name is Dr. Makiba Butler Finn, and I am the deputy director. Here we go. Sorry, you guys. Wait a minute. All right, once again, thank you all for being here. My name is Dr. Makiba. I am the Deputy Director of Strategic Initiatives with the Office of Contract Compliance, and I'm responsible for the education, the strategic engagement, targeted outreach, all of that good stuff to make sure that our vendors and our small business community has the tools and the resources that they need to be able to be viable with the county, to be able to build sustainable relationships in the contracting space, and to be able to do all of that good stuff so that they can grow their businesses. And so today we are proud to present our JOC 101 training, which is a dive into job order contracting training webinar, which is the first of its kind under my watch. And we're doing it with my amazing colleagues in various departments. So as I mentioned earlier, we do have the office, hopefully we have the Office of the Chief Procurement Officer on, or they will be, someone from the office will be on. We also have the Cook County Department of Capital Planning and Policy represented, and then we also have Gordian. So without further ado, we'll go ahead and get started here. So the objective of this training is to basically provide you with a high-level overview of job order contracting, which is a construction procurement process created to streamline construction work for Cook County. We definitely hope that after you participate in this training that you have a little bit better understanding of what the job order contracting process actually is, and then how it fits into the overall picture of your business. And then we also want to make sure that you understand how to leverage it to grow your business and to also establish viable partnerships with the county. As I mentioned before, our presenters consist of the Office of the Chief Procurement Officer. We have Cook County Capital Planning and Policy, Gordian, and then the Office of Contract Compliance, which I believe is going to be the how they're going to be presenting. So if not, it's okay. We'll switch it up a little bit if we need to. Quick reminders so that you know. Please ensure that your microphone is muted unless otherwise requested, because we are recording and this recording is going to be uploaded to our OCC YouTube page for a reference and any type of professional development that may be needed. Also, please post questions in the chat or hold them until the Q&A designated segment. So basically what we're hoping is going to happen, we're hoping that we're going to have enough time to dive into some questions from the audience, from the people who are here. If we are able to get to your question because we run out of time, then please put your question in the chat and know that somebody will get your question answered, and I'll make sure that it's sent in an email when we do the follow-up email within 24 hours. As I mentioned before, this is recorded. And so the recording of this training will be uploaded to our Office of Contract Compliance YouTube page within 24 hours. And I will include the link to that replay or that recording in the follow-up email that I will send out to all registrants and or attendees within 24 hours of this training, along with any appropriate information that may have been promised or anything that our presenters feel that you need that was not shared. So at this point, I believe I am going to pass it over to OCPO. Are they here?
I don't believe so just yet. I did not get a response from either Rafi or Robert. So we may want to just go ahead and move on until they jump on the call.
Okay, no problem. So is that would that be Michael Judd, or would that be capital planning?
I believe it's capital planning up next.
So I can speak towards this and then hand it to Eric before I circle back. Hi, everyone. My name is Michael Judd. I'm the regional director here at Gordian. On behalf of Cook County, thank you all very much for being here. What procurement wanted to share today was, number one, really the purpose of the outreach was to try to get the subcontracting community in touch with the prime JOC contractors that have been awarded JOC contracts. So on this slide here, you'll see that there are 37 JOC umbrella contracts under each category that you see below. So the awarded contractors have unrestricted general contractor, self-performing, mechanical, electrical. So if you think that your work fits one of these trades, and we're going to get into some of how that work looks and et cetera, then it is a really good opportunity for you to connect with some of the primes on the call. We've seen several on the call here already. So Dr. Butler, if you would go to the next slide. So the next 4 slides here are Cook County awarded JOC contractors and the main point of contacts for each one of them. Please feel free, like Dr. Butler had mentioned, you're going to get a link to this. This will be posted as a recording, so you will have access to this in several different ways to get this information and the opportunity to do so. So Dr. Butler, if you would go to, yep, and then really, I'm sorry, if you go back 1 slide. Really the main point that procurement wanted to advise to all the subcontracting community members on the call is they're really going to be putting out an effort to actually illustrate what projects we are projecting to issue these projects to the prime contractors awarded as a JOC over, the next quarters or so. So I'm not sure if that cadence has been established yet, but these are some opportunities, that you may have. And then what you'll see is it's listed as a project in Q2 or Q3, and then Q3 to Q4, the type of project, and then the trade. So if it's a GC specific trade, you would identify this and say, okay, let me reach out to the unrestricted GCs who are on this contract, or the electrical for EC work, or mechanical, etc. So if any of these interest you, please reach out to those contractors under the contact list above. So with that, I will hand it to Eric Davis, who we work very close with capital planning.
Thank you, Michael. Good afternoon, everyone. And we very much appreciate your taking the time to join us this afternoon. I want to emphasize something that Michael said, which is the importance of this program and these types of projects to the county. My name is Eric Davis. I'm the Deputy Director of Capital Planning and Policy for the county. The Department of Capital Planning is one of the departments within the Bureau of Asset Management, which really takes care of the full life cycle of the county's building assets. We start with our real estate group, which acquires properties. We take care of the development, design, and construction of projects. Our Department of Facilities Management maintains the facilities, and then when our facilities reach their end of life, they're returned back to the Department of Real Estate. Capital planning is organized and has 3 primary portfolios for all of our projects. One is the largest is the public safety portfolio. That includes projects at our 12 courthouses in the Cook County Jail and among other facilities. We have the corporate portfolio, which includes projects in the county building and in other in transportation facilities, warehouses, and things like that. And then we have the health and hospitals portfolio, which, as the name suggests, includes our various health clinics and our multiple hospitals. County capital planning and the Bureau have undertaken another initiative recently, which is the development of what's called our Build Up Cook program. This is a program where the county is assisting suburban Cook County municipalities in developing and implementing various projects that are funded through the federal government through ARPA grants and other grants like that. Michael and his team are also helping work with some of our JOC contractors to contract work and deliver projects to suburban Cook municipalities. So unlike in the past, where this type of work has really only been applied to county facilities, the county is reaching out and helping these smaller municipalities also implement key improvements to their facilities, to their key infrastructure across the county. And so what you're going to see is a process that we use to deliver those projects. The JOC methodology is a central element of what we do here in capital planning. One of the things that we have done is acquire a series of contracts with Rafi and his group in procurement for architects and engineers. Those architects and engineers are specifically going to be tasked to provide you with the drawings and things that you need. But I want to emphasize we're very grateful to you, because really the contracting and subcontracting communities are the folks that make this whole thing run. And so I want to stress what Michael was saying. When you get a copy of this, please keep tabs. on the contracts for our JOC contractors. Also, please pay attention, if you will, to the Cook County Office of the Chief Procurement Officer's website. It's a great website, has lots of information, and if there are things and questions, you can ask questions that way. But again, thank you so much for taking the time this afternoon. This is really an opportunity for you to see what all is going on and to understand the process a little bit more, and most importantly, to make some of those connections with individual contractors, because quite frankly, we have a lot of projects to do. And if this is an area that you want to do to help grow your business, we're here to help you do that. And so with that, I'm going to turn it back over to Michael, who's going to walk you through the structure of this program. If at any time you have any questions, please raise your hand or speak up. This outreach effort is here for you. So we don't want you to wait till the end. If you've got a question, something's unclear, please speak up and let us know what you need so that we can make this as effective as possible. And with that, Michael, I'm going to hand it over back to you.
You, Eric. All right, so what we're going to go over today is really an overview of what job order contracting is, right? Eric mentioned that it's a procurement method that they use really heavily to get small to medium-sized projects going to the prime contractor very quickly. And that's what the essence of job order contracting is. So then once we review that, go into the Cook County JOC process. So individually, what does each project look like under job order contracting, and what does that umbrella entail? Then what are some of the benefits for you as a subcontractor within this community? And then finally, going over reviewing key points, hand it off to compliance, and then have any questions or answers that anyone might have thereafter. Next slide. So an overview of the contracts and the projects examples. Again, you'll have that contact list. You identified some of the projects that might be coming out in quarter 2, 3, and 4. So how Cook County wanted to solicit and eventually award their contracts under the job order contracting procurement method is by these disciplines that you see in the left column: unrestricted general construction, self-performing, mechanical, electrical, highway site work, demolition, and environmental site remediation. You'll see the specific scopes of work that were advertised, so this is all public. And then project examples that have been issued POs and executed work in the past. So you can see the various levels of construction and the amount of volume that Cook County has on any given project. You can go from one project being north of $1.8 million to a project that's about 14,000. So it really depends. There's a wide variety of JOC projects that Cook County ultimately decides to utilize the job order contracting procurement method for. So again, as those opportunities are illustrated under future opportunities on procurement's website, when that initiative takes off, please be aware of that, and please reach out to those contractors who fit that discipline that ultimately your business is designated as. Next slide. So just as any other agency, Cook County has construction delivery methods outside of job order contracting. For today, the sole focus is going to be going over what job order contracting is. They do have in-house staff. They do have design, bid, build, time and material contracts, engineering, in-house trades, but again, this is a JOC 101 seminar. We'll be reviewing job order contracting. So what is JOC? Why are we all here? It is an indefinite quantity delivery method designed to produce a large number of multi-traded rehab and repair projects, as well as minor new construction projects very quickly. So what happens is the prime contractors, they get awarded a contract for a maximum potential value and pretty much a term agreement, 3, 4, 5 years. All of that is predicated on what's in the solicitation. So there are optional years per the county if they choose to extend the contractor. But really, it's a means of the contractors under contract to get work done immediately and executed as fast as possible, while also performing the work efficiently, right? So it offers a fundamentally different construction procurement relationship with the prime contractors, with Cook County, and then especially with the subcontracting community. It fosters that collaborative relationship between all of those parties. And again, they build those lasting relationships because, as you'll note, as you'll see here later on, these contractors have a term agreement and they're expected to execute that work over that length of time. So digging into the JOC process, the work order process. In general, there are 5 steps, and we're looking at this at pretty much a 10,000 foot overview. Number 1 would be the joint skill meeting. So ultimately, Cook County would have a scope of work that they would provide to us. And again, we are an extension of Cook County on behalf of their job order contracting program, where Gordian would call you as the prime and schedule that meeting for those who are involved, the engineering, capital planning, prime contractors, any A&E services that might be included. And the prime contractor is instructed to then reach out to the subcontracting community to call these subcontractors to help attend these joint scope meetings. And really the ultimate goal of that is to provide direct professional input from the folks who are going to be performing that construction. So as you'll note here, job order contracting is an expedited process. So once we do get a project, we call the contractor and try to get that joint scope meeting scheduled within 3 to 5 days. And then once we perform that joint scope meeting, then we go into a detailed scope of work development where, yep, we got the scope summary and pretty much what the end user needs to be accomplished. But because you're the subject matter experts in the field, we rely and collaborate with you on developing what that detailed scope of work means. And that we can talk about means and methods. We can talk about time of execution. We can talk about lead times if there's issues there. So ultimately, from having that joint scope meeting, we like to get that detailed scope of work ironed out in about 7 to 10 days approximately. Once the detailed scope of work is final, then we would issue an RFP, or request for proposal, where the prime contractor builds their proposal in the Gordian platform that's tied to a construction task catalog, where Gordian would then review that in step 4. So in between step 3 and 4, as the contractor is building their proposal, they're going to rely on the subcontracting community to provide real input into what those costs are going to be, right? They need to understand the square footages and the unit of measures for each and every trade and each and every line item so that they can collectively put all of the scope of work together and submit it to Gordian and Cook County for proposal review. So once we get into step 4, we like to have about 14 to 21 days until approval. And that's really to ensure that the prime contractor selected the appropriate tasks, the appropriate quantities are entered in the proposal. And again, this is where if there's any questions that pop up, hey, the plans seem like there's not enough square footage, right? Or we think that you might be overestimating the square footage of this certain area. Then we would ask the prime contractor, which would then they might ask you, since you provided that data to them. So they just might need some context to the line item being used, or they might ask you to verify quantities in your proposal to the prime contractor. So you want to be on the lookout for that. And that process typically takes 14 to 21 days. And then finally, once everyone is in agreement, which would be capital planning, Cook County, the prime contractor, then that job order would be issued. And that takes about 45 to 60 days. That is because it goes through several rounds of iterations after that to ensure that the package in its entirety is completely put together. So it would go to procurement, and then procurement would then send it to compliance, and compliance would look at the estimated MWBE contractors or the self-performing contractors that are illustrated on that specific job. So it's ensuring that all the T's are crossed and the I's are dotted throughout that whole process. Then once that job order is actually issued, where a PO is issued, then normal construction activities start after that. So processing the actual term agreement with the primes, getting submittals entered in, getting in the field, and executing the work. So in job order contracting, an average approximate timeline is about 75 to 90 days within Cook County. So because the contractors have a term agreement for a maximum potential value, it is performance-based. So because of that, there are measurables, which we'll get into on the next slide, but really it's the responsiveness of the contractor. So the prime contractor really relies on the subcontractor and partners with you in order to get that information back, whatever the county needs, in an appropriate amount of time per those approximate timelines, the execution procedures that are within the contracts that the primes have. So the performance is rated from project development all the way through that construction, from startup to closeout. And the project development phase is that scope definition, and then timely and accurate price proposals. So because it is expedited, the primes may ask you for those scopes or those proposals a lot quicker than a design build, where it might take several months to review a full set of plans, go through a whole RFI process, things of that nature. And then once a PO is issued, it's the construction phase. So again, It's the timely startup. It's getting the field crews on site and starting the execution of that work. And then it's the effective management of the work crew as well, ensuring that the project is constructed according to the specifications. And then ultimately, it's your success in driving that relationship with the prime contractor and then with Cook County, because they will enjoy working with you and want to have you see some of those opportunities with those prime contractors. These are the specific measurable performance standards that are within the prime contracts. So the quality of the price proposals, they need to be accurate and timely. The timely construction, so again, it's the rapid mobilization of the start, and then quality construction all the way through, and that also entails management of staff, making sure the communication is up to par. And then achievement of MWBE goals. They do have MWBE goals and self-performing requirements that are within these contracts that they're expected to uphold. And then finally, the prevailing wages. Each contractor is awarded that each contractor that has been awarded is contractually obligated to pay prevailing wages. And each project, as they go through that 45 to 60 day procurement compliance review, also goes through what's called a COOP review, a coalition of unionized public employee review and labor workforce processes, to ensure that everything is, again, up to par, every piece of documentation is to date, and that the contractor can go to work very quickly. So the benefits of JOC, right? The benefits of job order contracting is really a linear process with 3 big steps. JOC can be very profitable, but that profit is a function of volume. And that volume is a profit of, or a function of performance. So in order to achieve all of those 3 steps, the contractor must perform at a high level for Cook County on every opportunity that they have. That drives the volume that the contractor is going to get, the prime and even the subcontractor. And then the profit is a function of the volume. So what happens with that process is, as the county and as the prime is more comfortable with you and your role, it provides a steadier flow of work where you don't have to continue to chase the next project, right? So because of that, right, it's a building block, and it's milestones that you achieve. You establish that long-term relationship with the contractor and with county. So you want to try to have it be a non-adversarial relationship and really focus on that partnership to get those projects done, because there's constituents that rely on these contractors that get the work done. So it is professionally rewarding as well. There's different types of projects, varying scopes of work. And as a subcontractor, providing your input during the scope development process and knowing that you have a steady hand in improving something within Cook County is really cool. And it's a great opportunity to do that and include that in your portfolio as a subcontractor. And then on the next slide, specifically for these subcontractors, diving even a little deeper, on the prime contracts, there are no projects that are assigned at the time of bidding. So you saw those projects at the very beginning of Q2, Q3, Q4, and that's going to be an ongoing list. But no contractors know exactly what projects they're going to be assigned. So because of that, there are increased subcontracting opportunities out there. The contractors must be able to execute several projects at one time and be able to manage all of those projects, which means they rely on that subcontracting community. If they cannot keep up with all of the work, they must subcontract some of that work out. In addition, there are MWBE goals that they have to satisfy as well. So they are constantly looking at that community to see who they can partner with. It's a simplified procurement process for the county, allowing them to procure more work in a shorter amount of time, which lines everything up to that volume as a profit function. And then again, multiple projects on multiple sites simultaneously. The effectiveness work of staff is critical in job order contracting. So there are a couple success stories that a couple contractors wanted to share. Number one was Paul Board Construction. They had been doing business since 2012, utilizing job order contracting. And again, they echo a lot of the essence of what job order contracting really is, which is completing many successful construction projects in that time, now going on about 12 years. They have built those strong relationships with the key stakeholders here. And it gives the opportunity for Paul Board Construction to continue to get that work repeatedly at that high level. So that's one success story as a prime contractor. On the next slide, Autumn Construction was also graceful enough to provide a testimonial where Autumn started as a subcontractor in 2012 to contractors who had been on contracts, such as FH Passion, Kara Miller. Their involvement through that subcontracting effort gave them the confidence and the ability to bid on the JOC program as a prime themselves. And they've grown from there ever since. They've been able to contact and be JOC contractors for other sister agencies as well. So they used Cook County as a platform for their success. And they have done projects from $14,000 to over $1 million for their mechanical systems. So there are true success stories that come out of this program through job order contracting. So as a subcontractor, how do you get involved? Right? This all sounds great. This sounds like it's right in your wheelhouse. You have all of those disciplines that seem to match your scope of work. You need to contact the awarded JOC contractors. Those contact lists, that's your bread and butter for being able to contact them. So how do you do that? Right? Because a lot of folks contact, stakeholders every day. You want to illustrate your portfolio and show those projects that have been previously completed, right? You want to show off your work. So provide contacts, provide references who would champion that performance so that a prime contractor can evaluate that portfolio and say, this would be a good MWBE or a subcontractor to partner with on a potential project that we get assigned. Attend outreach efforts, right? Exactly like you're doing today. This is a virtual outreach, but there's other outreaches that Cook County has on the market. There's an expo that they did last year and that they're going to have in the summer of this year. So it's really important to attend those outreach efforts. And some contractors will even host their own. There's several contractors that host their own outreach efforts every quarter or bi-yearly. So it's really important to monitor that and stay active within the community. Contractors, once they get your portfolio and they see who you are, be aware that they'll contact you in several different ways. They can contact you via email, Building Connected. The Blue Book Network is an important role for a few contractors. Some will even cold call you right on the spot. They'll ask, hey, we got this project from Cook County. We think you'd be a good fit. Let's talk about this project, right? As they go through this, they may ask for that project reference from other portfolios or other projects that you've completed. So it would be prudent of you to put together that package to illustrate your portfolio so that you have it on hand ready. So when they ask you for that, you can turn it over. And then something critical that you want to be aware of too is that JOC contractors, especially ones that have been contracted with Cook County, you saw a couple testimonials since 2012. Word of mouth is really important, right? As you continue to execute your work and build your business as a subcontractor, contractors talk to each other. JOCs will ask other JOC contractors, hey, how did ABC Construction perform for you on this job? We're thinking about utilizing them. How was their responsiveness? How did they do executing the work? So that's really important. So as you continue to do that and build your portfolio, that word of mouth also spreads around as well. Next page. So tips for being able to talk to the JOC primes, right? Number one, because job order contracting is a very expedited process, the prime contractors really rely on fast and responsible pricing, right? Again, the JOC contractor may ask for pricing in a matter of days, and there might be a variety of ways that they ask for pricing from you. So it's a little different than reviewing a full scale set of plans and then getting back to a contractor 2, 3, 4 weeks, or even later than that. They may ask for it in a matter of days because what they have to do is, especially for renovation projects where there's multi-trade projects going on, they'll talk to a mechanical subcontractor. They'll talk to an electrical contractor. They'll see if one of those contractors are utilizing a mechanical or an electrical under that contractor. So it gets pretty involved sometimes, especially on the larger scale projects. So it's important to be fast and responsible with your pricing. Also, obtain and hold MWBE certifications. JOC contractors will look online for those potential MWBE subcontractors. So be certified, have that ready so that when a contractor reaches out to you and asks you if you're certified, yes, I am. Here's my letter of certification for you. And then agreement and understanding the JOC contractor contract terms is really important. Completing all the compliance paperwork, which compliance will be getting into here shortly, accurately and timely is critical, right? Because again, it takes 45 to 60 days of development time in order to get a PO on the back end after that project proposal has been submitted. So it takes a month and a half, or 2 months. So you need to be able to submit that paperwork accurately and timely so that you're able to eliminate some of the prime contractors' time and having to go back and forth with the subcontractors in order to get that paperwork. Be aware of some other requirements, badging requirements, especially in the health and hospital system. It's critical that you know of that badging process. So you want to be able to ask those kinds of questions as you gain that opportunity from that prime contractor. And then you want to be on the lookout for if the contractor has bonding and insurance capacity requirements, because the contractor has those. So ultimately, they may include all of this language in their term agreements. So you have to be able to understand the contract terms and then be able to be agreeable with the contractor in that timely manner. Slide.
Michael, before you go on to the next slide, I would note that we have a question in the chat from Jennifer Wren. I wanted to make sure we had enough because it goes to what you had in the prior slide. I don't know if you can see the chat questions from there, Michael, or not.
Let's see. Yes, I can. Jennifer asked, what would a new contractor do to get performance under their belt? Are there opportunities for new organizations? I am SDVOSB certified. I'm female, minority owned. Are there any protege programs or mentors? So that's a great question. There's a few JOC contractors on this call right now. I took note of this when I first jumped in. It was McDonough, Autumn Construction, FH Passion, and Rope Construction. You have that contact list. Those contractors joined early. There might be others that joined since then that I haven't recorded. Reach out to those. These contractors care about your portfolios, and they're always looking for certified contractors, especially female and minority owned, because the compliance goals that are really important. So there are mentor and protege contractors that they constantly look for. So it's a great question.
I also wanted to note, Jennifer, that compliance will be getting into some of these. I realize that the slide that Michael has on the screen references service disabled veterans certifications. They'll get into the specifics of what is or is not eligible, and also the processes for getting into the system for MWBE, minority-owned, women-owned firms, and those kind of programs. So there'll be some more information on that later in this presentation. So great question, thank you. And like I said, contract compliance will get into that in just a little bit.
Thank you, Eric, for letting me know that there was a chat there. Okay, next slide. I believe I'm ahead of this one. After this one, actually.
I think you're on the prior with the time. Slide 26. That one. The subcontractors getting well. There you go.
Yep. All right. One other important aspect to this, as far as the subcontracting community getting involved, is the payment timelines and the capacities. Right. You saw the prime contractors have multi-level projects where they can get $1-2 million jobs. These projects take time, especially in public procurement. There's a lot of information that procurement, Cook County, capital planning has to vet to ensure that there's fair appropriation and that payments are being submitted fairly and timely. So because of that, payments are not made to the JOC contractor immediately. So as soon as you get your scope of work done for the contractor, you have to understand what the terms are in your contract with the prime contractor, because the prime might not be getting paid for weeks or months after that, because there are several pieces of information that they need to make sure that contractors are getting paid fairly and timely. So be aware of that, right? And also be aware that retainage is held on a project by project basis. So typically that might be 10%. Some projects may be less at 5%, but prime contractors have to be held to that retainage policy in the contract. So you want to make sure that you're reviewing the terms of the prime contractor to ensure that you understand what that language looks like around payment, right? However, per law, JOC contractors must pay subcontractors within 15 days of their payment received. So you do want to make note of that. And then also your upkeep of certified payroll and B2G as well. And compliance is going to be getting into that language a little bit. But that's going to be really important throughout this process as well, because those prime contractors rely on those subcontractors to keep up with that information. And then finally, providing all waivers, partial and final waivers per the payment application procedures and contract obligations. Making sure that those are submitted accurately and timely is really important as well.
Although before you leave that one, I do want to emphasize for that. The Department of Capital Planning and Policy has put structures in place, and we're actually quite pleased. When our packages come in, when invoice packages come in, if everything is in there, we're averaging less than 30 days to get the payments out to our comptroller for payment. We worked very hard on that. It's very important to this department. And so that partnership that the subcontractors have with the general contractors, and particularly this last one as far as getting the waivers in and things like that, if the stuff comes in accurately, the contractors are getting paid within a month. We work very hard to make that the case. So yes, it's not immediate, but as long as that partnership is successful and we get complete packages in, we do our part as promptly as we can. So go ahead, Michael.
That's wonderful. Okay, so some reviewing key points for at least the job order contracting and the procurement portion prior to getting to some compliance information. JOC is an established procurement system used by Cook County. These are at a high level, the 5-step process. Once that prime has JOCs awarded, which you saw, there's 37 contracts. 18 of those are all contractors on the contract. So it has benefits for all parties, for owners, Cook County, capital planning, the end users, and the public safety and health and hospital portfolios. They get their work done. You have that relationship with that prime contractor so that you continue to get that work throughout the term of the contract. It is performance-based, so it determines how much work that you as a subcontractor is going to be getting assigned, because the prime contractor is being rated off that, right? The last 2 bullet points are critical. You want to be aware of the methods to become really to showcase what that package looks like to the JOC prime contractors, so that they will give you a call so that you can increase your opportunities in the market, and then be ready to perform at that high level as well. Next slide. All right, so with that, the MWBE goals on this contract are 24% MBE and 10% WBE. So I will hand it off to David Bowman.
Actually, I'm going to jump in, Mike. I'm going to introduce Dave. So I am Janetta Cardine, Deputy Director in the Office of Contract Compliance. My team oversees all of the compliance component of the JOC contract. Dave Bowman and Michael Krug actually handle all of the documents that you would submit to our department if you are participating as a subcontractor contracts. So without further ado, David Bowman.
All right, thank you, Janetta. Mike Krug and I will now walk you through the contract compliance aspects of the JOC program. As had been mentioned earlier in the presentation, a total of 37 JOC master contracts were awarded within the various construction disciplines, with differing amounts of self-performance requirements for the prime contractor as noted in the table. These contracts also have participation requirements with respect to MBE, WB, and small business enterprise. As the prime contractors were not given specific scopes at the time the master contracts were solicited, all of the contractors were required to submit an affidavit agreeing they would meet the 2410 MW and 51% SPE requirements over the life of the contract. For those contracts with MBE and WB participation goals, as Michael noted, those goals are 24% MBE and 10% WB direct participation. With respect to those contracts with a SPE goal, the direct participation SPE goal is 51% SPE. Direct participation may be met via subcontracting, or in the case where the prime is a MW or SPE, they can meet the direct participation via self-performance. Indirect participation cannot be utilized for MW or SPE participation, but will be considered towards documenting good faith efforts in those rare cases where a prime contractor may be requesting a full or partial MW or SPE waiver. While MW and SPE participation is measured over the life of the contract, for each project that a prime is assigned, the prime must submit a complete utilization plan listing their subs. Required documents include the Form 1, Form 2, identification of subcontractor form, and current certification letters, and in some cases, the Form 3 waiver request form. The project work order level goal is 2410, and while the prime may request a full or partial MW waiver, That'll be explained in a future slide.
Hello. Can I hear? Okay.
Hello?
That's good.
I'll continue then. For every project, both primes as well as their subcontractors will be required to report and confirm payments in the B2G system in a timely fashion. This is super important because this lets us know that the primes and the subs are following their utilization plan. Failure to report and confirm payments in a timely fashion is an active default and can lead to delays to future payments. Mike Krug will now explain some of the documents that must be completed by the prime and their subs. Next slide. Michael?
Yep.
Next slide, please. There we go. Thank you.
So on the project level basis, the prime and its MW subs are required to fully complete forms 1 and 2. That's the utilization plan and letter of intent form listing the subcontractors and giving a description of the work, the dollar amounts, and corresponding percentage that the dollar amount represents as a percentage of the total JOC project. The terms of payment must also be included on Form 2. These forms must be fully completed, and in the case of Form 2, signed and notarized by both parties. A copy of the current Cook County or City of Chicago certification letter should also be provided. For the contracts where SPE and not MWBE participation is required, the prime and its subcontractors may use the same Forms 1 and 2, but instead list SPE subcontractor participation, similar to what would be provided for MWBE goal-based contracts. For SPE goal-based contracts to be counted towards meeting the SPE contract-specific goal, a contractor or its subcontractors or suppliers must either A, be certified as an 8A by the U.S. Small Business Administration and meet the requirements specified herein for SPEs, or B, certified as an MBE or WBE by Cook County, the City of Chicago, or the Illinois United Certification Program. The letter of certification or affidavit of small business status must also be submitted with the utilization plan included in the contractor's job order proposal package. Certified MBE, WBE firms work may only be counted towards MWSBE participation credit when performing work within their area of certification. If the contractor is subbing out a portion of the work to another sub, this must be noted on Form 2 in the applicable area and explained. A subcontractor identification form would be required for the second tier sub. Next slide. So this is the affidavit of small business status form. As noted, the affidavit for small business status form must be completed for all non-MW firms being used towards SPE participation on the project work order. If a subcontractor or the prime is a certified MW, then they may provide their current letter of certification from the City of Chicago, Cook County, or Illinois United Certification Program in lieu of the affidavit. Next slide.
All right, thanks, Mike. Next, we'll talk about waivers and good faith efforts when the MW or SBE participation cannot be achieved at the project level basis. While participation goals on the contract are based on the entire duration of the contract, it is still expected that on a per project work order level basis, the goal is 24 MBE and 10% WB or 51% SB on those small business enterprise contracts. While a prime may in some instances be granted approval of a utilization plan that falls slightly short of the 24/10 or 51% SBE participation goals, they will be expected to make up the shortfall on a future work order assignment by exceeding the shortfall dollars accordingly. In those rare instances where obtaining the requisite MW or SBE participation is not feasible, the prime may request a full or partial MW or SBE waiver. The waiver request form 3 that we're showing on the screen now must be accompanied with a detailed explanation and documentation explaining what steps were taken to attempt to meet the participation goal. If at any time the contractor's MBE and WB participation is below the contract specific goals of 2410 or the SB, or the contractor is unable to achieve the contract specific goals, the contractor shall demonstrate its good faith efforts to how they're trying to do this. The contractor shall show that it took all necessary and reasonable steps to achieve the contract specific goals, which by their scope, intensity, and appropriateness to the objective could be expected to obtain MW participation, even if it were not fully successful. The efforts employed by the contractor shall be those that one could reasonably expect a contractor to take if the contractor were actively trying to obtain MW participation sufficient to meet the MW contract goals. Mere pro forma efforts are not good faith efforts to meet the MW contract goals. As requested by the county, the contractor shall document its good faith efforts. The specific requirements that Cook County will consider as part of the contractor's good faith efforts to obtain M&W participation are identified in the County Code section 34-285. For example, in cases where there are numerous firms listed within a work category in the listing of certified firms available in the search of the diversity management system, or B2G as we call it, it is the prime's responsibility to reach out to the majority of certified firms and obtain supporting documentation to justify their waiver request. Further, with respect to requesting a waiver based on pricing received from MW firms being too high, the MW firms' pricing proposals that the prime had obtained would need to exceed the selected non-MW firm's price by at least 10%. And as noted previously, the prime would have to obtain a significant number of quotes from MW firms to substantiate the cost argument. Next, Mike Krug will speak of the identification of subcontractor form. Next slide, please.
Thank you, Dave. The identification of subcontractor form. This must be fully completed for all subcontractors and suppliers, including those that are not MWSBE. Typically, the dollar amounts noted on the ISF should correspond to the dollar amounts noted on Form 2 for the MWSBE subcontractors. Exceptions would include the subcontractor is also performing work on the job that is not in their area of certification and thus not eligible for credit. In that circumstance, a written explanation should be provided explaining why the dollar amounts are not the same. Another example where there would be a difference is if the first tier sub was subbing out a portion of the work to a second tier sub. In that case, the second tier subcontractor is being used. They should be listed on the ISF along with the first tier sub being listed on that left side of the form in the contractor box. If the first tier sub is an MWSBE, they should only take credit on Form 1 and 2 for the work that they are self-performing. Next slide, Dave, back to you.
Sorry about that, I was on mute. Thanks, Mike. So the next thing we're going to speak about is the compliance estimate form and self-performance form that are part of a JOC package that get completed in the eGordian application that the prime contractors use to electronically submit price proposals to the county and Gordian for review. For each project work order the prime is assigned, they are required to complete the several forms through this platform. With respect to contract compliance, the two most important forms are the compliance estimate form, where the prime provides the MW or SBE participation information, as well as the self-performing estimate form, the form on the right side. With respect to MWSBE participation, the information provided on the compliance estimate form should be consistent and substantiated by the information provided in forms 1 and 2, as well as the ISF. And the contractors must also provide the current certification letter or affidavit of small business as applicable. And in the case of a waiver, they must also provide Form 3 and the backup documentation. With respect to the self-performance requirements on these JOC contracts, unlike MW or SBE participation, which is measured in dollars as a percentage of the work order cost, self-performance is measured as a percentage of the hours worked on the site by the workers of the prime and its sub. Compliance with the self-performance requirements will be based on the actual number of hours worked on the project work site through the working four-person level. Superintendent's office and administrative hours do not count towards meeting the self-performance requirement. I will now turn the presentation back over to Michael Judd to begin the question and answer segment of the presentation.
Thank you, Dave. With that concludes the presentation. So does anyone have any questions? We have some primes on the call. So does anyone have specific questions for any prime contractors?
Doesn't sound like, it doesn't look like we have any
Right.
questions. I'm trying to see if we have a chat. Hold on, let me stop sharing.
Hey, I have one for that last slide. As you're looking that up, the percentage of self-performance, does that change project to project, or is that a set percent?
Yes, so the self-performance requirements change depending upon what kind of contract it is. If you look at the first slide that I ran through, that broke out the contracts by, self-performing general contractor, electrical contractor, mechanical contractor. Some of those are higher or lower, like on these very trade-specific ones, such as electrical or mechanical. Those are at 51% self-performance, whereas like the general contractor ones are 15% self-performance.
And I wanted to add, Dave, to that for Dan's question, to note that requirement is at a contract level, not necessarily at a project level. But let's say, you have a mechanical contractor and their first assignment out of the box is actually a plumbing project. They may come back and say, look, we don't have the ability to do 51% on in-house. And so Gordian and folks may assign that to a different vendor. But then let's say that contractor is above their 51% overall. If they get a specific assignment that's below it, as long as for their contract as a whole, they're maintaining that requirement, then that's okay. They can do that. So for a given assignment, they may drop below that, but they're required to maintain that for the entirety of their total up to that point within their agreement.
That makes sense. Thank you both very much.
Looking in the chat, so there are a couple of questions. Ms. Bruce asked, is it only union? If that makes sense. Are these opportunities only for union contractors?
I think Michael could probably speak to that.
So the contracts are prevailing wage for the prime contractors, and each project goes through the COOP review that I mentioned briefly. And that does ensure that the union takes a look at who is performing the work. And if the COOP review deems that there are not union workers on that job that they think should be, then union workers will be assigned. So in most cases, yes, you do need to be obligatory to the union.
Thank you. Best practices and pitfalls to avoid. Can maybe, I don't know if it's you, Michael, or a prime contractor that you have here, but can we list like maybe a couple of best practices and or pitfalls to avoid?
Yeah, is there a prime contractor in the call that wants to speak to that briefly? If not, I can. I know there's a couple minutes left. Oh, okay, yeah, I can speak to it at a high level. Best practices would be kind of, you're going to get a copy of this presentation. So best practices, in my opinion, would be just being responsive and being responsible. And that goes a long way with the whole procurement piece of it. So being responsive when contractors call you to try to get you on site with their proposals, with the paperwork necessary, and then be responsible with that. So have, effective management of your work crews, effective management of paperwork, pay applications. That's really important. So at a high level, responsive and responsible.
Thank you. And then I think the last question that we're going to go ahead and answer or ask and try to answer, since we have about a minute left, is Curtis asks, is there a list of all prime contractors and contact info on who manages their JOC contract?
I believe that question might be more for the prime contractors, which yes, there is. Since you are on the call, you will be getting the slide deck that has all of the contact information right at the very beginning.
Just to underscore that for Curtis, yeah, the individuals listed in that table are the people that we contact, so they're probably the people that you should contact.
Awesome. Thank you. Thank you. Thank you so much. I really appreciate you all being here, and to my colleagues who took the time out to prepare this presentation, work with me to get it done, and time out of your day to actually present the information. Thank you so very much. I really appreciate it. I know that this is something that a lot of our vendors or our contractors have questions about and really wanted to know more about. So I thank you for taking the time to do this. As we mentioned, I will be providing a follow-up email within 24 hours, so you'll probably get that email tomorrow sometime. And that email will have just a recap of what we talked about here, as well as the link to the recording. And you will also have a link there to register for our 2024 Cook County Procurement Summit, which is similar to the expo that we had last year, but this year it's called a summit, because we have a couple of other focuses there. So you will have a link there as well. And then you'll also have a link to our entire YouTube channel, where there are some additional professional development pieces there for you to reference and to listen to or watch whenever you have time. So with that said, thank you all so much. Yes.
Actually, I wanted to add 2 points, if I may, just take a quick moment for those folks still on the call. And I know that Dr. Butler knows this. This program is very important to Cook County Board President Toni Breckenkel. She is absolutely committed at a policy level to expanding opportunities for our subcontracting community. So we want you to understand that your participation in this is really important to us as an organization. We really value that. The second thing is to emphasize the partnership relationship with your JOC prime contractors, because as Michael and Dr. Butler know, your participation in it and your documentation that you've gotten paid is the gateway to them getting a subsequent assignment. So there really is a relationship between what you do and you're getting paid for the work that you do, and the prime contractor's ability to get subsequent assignments. We have had contractors who were not working with their subcontractors well, or getting what they need, and we had to hold off assigning them work because they weren't holding up their end of the bargain. So that relationship that the subcontractors have with the primes is really the key to making this whole system work. With that, Dr. Butler, I just want to thank you very much this afternoon. I think this has been a great afternoon.
Absolutely. Thank you, Eric. I really appreciate it. All right, you all. So that's all we have. Thank you for all of our attendees who took time to be here, and look for that email tomorrow. You guys have a wonderful rest of the day, and we'll see you at the next training.
Yep.
Thank you.